All right, we're going to go ahead and call our workshop to order, declare a quorum of 7 trustees present. It's going to take us to item C, public comment. Ms. Horn, there's no public comment. Item D1, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to the 2022-2023 school calendar development process. Mr. Martindale.
It's that time.
It is.
That time, Mr. Nugent. We have our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Penny Trample. She's going to just kind of review with the board the process that we're going through to create next year's calendar, as well as the conversations she's had with DEIC up to this point as well. Just an overall timeline for development process, as well as when we would tentatively be seeking action by the board early spring. Dr. Trample?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Nugent and board. The DEIC has been working on the calendar since October. We had a brief overview of the calendar process and the parameters that we have in place with development of the calendar, and then DEIC was asked to give input. They were asked to go back to campus, garner input from their colleagues, and then submit that through a Google form. We took the Google form information and created 3 calendars based on the teacher input that we received. We met this month and reviewed the calendars that were created from the October input. Members discussed the calendars, and we actually took a vote on the best calendars. The input kind of lent itself to 3 different calendars, and when we voted, there wasn't like clear winners. And so, so we still have 3 right now. So after we looked at them, discussed a little bit, we are going to come back in December. They're going to give additional input, and we're going to have an opportunity to look at those 3 calendars again, sharing what we have come up with so far with you, and there should be some tweaks and changes to that as of our December meeting when DEIC meets again. In December, when we meet, the DEIC members will vote on 2 calendars they would like to put forward for public input on the website. And then we will post those calendars on the website. So our objective in December is to narrow it down from 2 to 3. In January, DEIC will review the public input from the calendars posted online and then vote on a calendar to recommend forward to the board. We will recommend to you that calendar in January or February. It depends on where DEIC is with examining the input from the public and the decisions they come up with at the January meeting. Typically, it's January when it comes to the board for approval, but we have brought it to the board in February. So depending, it could be January or February when we bring it back to you all. We have 3 calendars this year. And calendar A is probably the closest to what we currently have. If we look at this, let me make it just a tad bigger. We have 6 teacher work days at the beginning of the year, or 6 teacher professional learning days starting on August the 8th and ending on the 15th, with students starting on August 16th. We have a holiday on the 5th of September, a professional development day on the 7th of October, and that would also be the elementary conference day, and then a holiday on October the 10th. The week of Thanksgiving, we have a comp day, and then we have 4 holidays. That entire week would be off for students. We get out for winter holiday on the 21st, so we would have probably based on input, this may be an early release day. So starting on the 22nd, all the way through the 6th, the students would be out. There is a comp day on the 5th and a staff development day in preparation for a second semester on the 6th. February 16th is a holiday. February 23rd is a comp day. February 13th through 17th is spring break, and with the information that we have right now, this aligns with the A&M spring break calendar. In April, we have a holiday on the 7th. We have a professional development day on the 10th. And in May, we have early release for students on the 25th, a teacher work day on the 26th, with both comprehensive high schools graduations being on the 26th. And then, of course, the 29th is a holiday, but everyone's out of school but the people who work longer than the normal school year, right? So this is calendar A. If we go back and we look at calendar B, it's a little bit different,
Hey, slow down just a second, Penny. Do you guys
have a
have questions
question?
on A before she moves forward? Questions on A before she moves forward?
Yeah, we had different questions. I had one just, and I know it's so early, but I was just wondering what the discussion and reasoning was, particularly around the holiday break, having the staff development day on the Friday and maybe instead of the Monday, and then getting that Thursday before off. I mean, usually we would have the staff development day on the Monday, so it gives the teachers and the staff that extra weekend. I was just wondering if there was discussion around
on
that.
what month are you talking about?
Yeah, there are
October
lots of holidays. This one,
or January?
yeah, over the Christmas break, right?
So,
And then not having the December 22nd.
okay, so going all the way through December 22nd and getting out on the 23rd for staff and students?
Yes.
And then, okay, and then,
The staff development day would then move to the 9th. I think that was more with what we have this year. I was just, because then that gives the staff that extra weekend. I was just wondering if there was discussion on it yet, maybe not.
that particular comment has not been given as input, but it could very well be at the next meeting. And that's something to think about, for sure.
It just stood out to me.
Sure.
Thanks, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Did you say both graduations be on the same?
Correct.
That's what we're anticipating. We are currently planned for that this May as well, and utilizing Reed Arena once again, and moving those back indoors. After our experiences this past year, I still kind of have a nervous twitch over that. But yes, our plans are to utilize Reed Arena again, 4 o'clock, and I believe 7:30 is typically what we've done.
Good run.
Okay. All right. Moving on to calendar B, teachers have 5 days of professional development prior to the start of students. Students would start August the 17th. We have a holiday on the 5th of September, a professional development / conference day on the 7th of October, holiday on the 10th, 2 comp days on November the 21st and 22nd, holiday on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of November. Then in December, we have a comp day on the 19th. Students would get out on the 16th. And then the 20th would be a holiday through the 2nd. The 3rd would be a comp day, and students would return on the 4th. We have the 16th as a holiday, the 20th as a professional development day. Again, spring break, the week of the 13th. In April, we have the 7th as a holiday and the 10th as a professional development day. Teachers and students would have early release on the 26th. Teachers would have a professional development day on the 27th. And then we would still have both graduations on the 26th. So hold your breath on calendar C. Just starting a smidge earlier. August the 2nd and 3rd are comp days. And the 4th, 5th, 8th, and 9th are professional development days. And students come back on the 10th. We have September the 5th as a holiday, October the 7th as a holiday, October the 10th as a holiday, and October the 28th as a professional development day. Then we have the week of the 21st off. Everyone gets out for winter break on the 16th. The holiday begins on the 19th through the 6th, with a comp day being on the 5th and a professional development day being on the 6th. We have a holiday on the 16th. We have a professional development day on the 17th, a comp day on the 20th. Again, spring break is the week of the 13th. April 7th is a holiday, and April 10th is a professional development day. Early release for students on the 26th, with the teachers having professional development on the 27th, with graduations being on the 26th. So those are the 3 calendar choices.
So that one almost adds another, it adds that other week at the winter holiday, right? The Christmas break.
It does. So
That's almost, that's 3 weeks.
Staff and
And
students.
4 weekends. They're not playing on that winter break.
It's
That's for real.
You are
It is
correct.
3 weeks for
Okay.
students. Teachers would, obviously come back to prepare for second semester.
I'm sorry, Mr. Horak, could you turn your microphone on? Dr. Trammell, just to
Yes,
just
sir.
to go through the process again. So these are the 3 that DEIC's kind of been looking at and having conversation around I know this last
Correct.
month.
Correct.
So they're submitting feedback, or did up through yesterday. And at the
correct.
December meeting, they'll decipher that feedback, see whatever particular adjustments they may think are appropriate, narrow that to 2.
Correct.
And that will be put forward to our stakeholders for vote and feedback, correct?
Correct. It will be
Comes
put-
back in January, the EIC with the feedback from the community and the vote from the community, and then ultimately, the EIC will come forward to the board with a calendar recommendation.
That is correct.
Okay.
So,
So any of these 3 could still be tweaked to some degree, but these are the ones before the committee at this moment.
that is correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Martindale pretty much told you the next steps, which is what's on this slide. Thank you, Mr. Martindale. DEI. So these are the steps that we will take, with the 2 calendars being posted for public input in December, and then DEIC revisiting those calendars in January and making a recommendation to the board. Okay?
I do have one question and a quick comment. Well, the comment is, obviously y'all are going to work to the schedule that best you can, but I think most families would probably appreciate the sooner the better that they could be aware of the next year's calendar. So hopefully that January, it would be nice to have it at that January date if at all possible.
Right, and based on the feedback, I was looking at it last night, and then had some late entries and had 3 more today that was added on last night after I looked at it. There are patterns in the feedback and in the tweaks that they want, so I anticipate that that will be I anticipate being on schedule to recommend in January to the board.
And the other one was, especially on B, it stood out. One thing was all those comp days. And I know we've talked about this most years, is
Right.
that because I think there were 4
There were.
on that, which was definitely more than
correct.
usual. What percentage, how many of our teachers and staff are able to take those comp days?
Right.
Yeah,
I think in the past, and we kind of visited about that, I think it was just a couple that did not get their time in. I'm not positive on that, but it wasn't masses of people or anything like that. We do offer professional development all summer, every week in the summer. We also offer professional development during the year as well. And then there's that 18 hours of mandatory training that teachers have to have. And this would allow them to get, 3 days of that, 18 hours of that before school starts, so that they're not trying to do everything for startup and that too.
So in general, most people would have an opportunity to get that ahead of time if they wanted to and
Absolutely.
And then be off.
Yeah.
those days.
Yeah, and so
We're
I will.
definitely
yeah.
on that holiday Christmas break.
I don't know recent data, and recent data probably is not a good reflection because of COVID, just our last couple of years. I can only speak to my memory, Kimberly, as principal. I can tell you as principal, typically when there were comp days, more times than not, I was the only one there. So from that standpoint, usually people participated in that opportunity, and we're because the comp time exchange too is 6 hours of professional development in exchange for a comp day. So I can, and again, this has been a year or two ago, right? So I do recall that typically when there was a comp day that there was usually only a handful of people on campus. So I think people typically take advantage if they know in advance and have the opportunity.
And they always have the option to work that day as well.
And obviously, the teachers have plenty of opportunity to get feedback on the calendars through DEIC and through the voting.
Right.
So, thanks.
Right. We started soliciting feedback from teachers in October through our DEIC campus representatives.
I know there are all kinds of factors that go into play in creating the calendar, but does the topic of the kind of Texas's standard possession order when it comes to child visitation and custody does that topic ever come up in these conversations?
We have had divorced families talked about the winter, like, break and that kind of thing. Not masses like you would think, but occasionally, usually a couple a year,
Okay.
we'll contact because that time is usually split.
Yeah, and so I was just noticing on the first one, for instance, whoever and I haven't looked at the standard possession order, I don't do family law, but it'd be a very minimal amount of time that the kids would have with whoever had the first visitation
round,
schedule.
yeah.
So I just wanted to check and see if that was kind of
You're correct
in
on
y'all's
that.
head.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I imagine you're going to stay right there for a second.
Just a second.
All right, well, we'll go to D2, consideration discussion related to renewal and update of the District of Innovation Plan. Mr. Martindale.
For part two, we have Dr. Trammell with us. It's going to give us an update on our District of Innovation Plan. Those plans are good for 5 years, so ours will term out after this year and needs to be renewed and put forth to TEA prior to this next fall. So I know that Dr. Trammell has had several conversations with DEIC with this particular item as well. And here with a brief overview and just actually the 4 points that we're looking and have been speaking with DEIC about possibly adjusting in our plan and the associated timeline. Dr.
Right.
Trammell.
Well, good evening again. DEIC has been looking at, and we have been talking about the District of Innovation renewal since September, actually. So it's actually been on the agenda for DEIC in September, October, and November. We basically have 2 Texas education codes that we have kind of broadened the language on and made them more applicable to our needs. And then we have 2 new ones that we've added. I've also put this in the transmittal a couple of times, so you may have had an opportunity to read the 2 that we broadened the language on and the 2 new ones. Just a reminder, we have an opportunity to be a District of Innovation because in the 84th legislative session, House Bill 1842 was passed. And essentially, this bill gives local school districts the same flexibilities as charter schools and private schools. The board appointed our District Education Improvement Council as the District of Innovation Advisory Committee when we established that we wanted to be a District of Innovation, and you all passed the resolution. So that is the committee that has been looking at these renewals, asking questions, and giving input. Our current plan expires in November of 2022. So it's been almost 5 years since we have become a district of innovation. The plan is good unless it is abolished or amended. So if you amend the plan, like we want to amend prior to the hiring season coming up, it is null and void, right? You have to implement a new plan, which is why we are working on the plan now so that it is our hope we can have the new plan in place by March of 2022. So we did have 12 Texas education codes that we had requested flexibilities on, and we now have 14. And so we'll review the 2 that we've broadened the language on, and then we will also review the 2 new ones. The first one that we revised language on was Texas Education Code 21.003, and it centers around educators and certifications required. We had this one previously, but our language on our benefits and justification was geared more towards CTE as opposed to languages other than English. You know, we have difficulty finding a French teacher. Well, something like this, broadening language on this allows us, if we find someone with a master's in French, even though they may not have a teacher certification, we can put local criteria in place and have them work with our students. So in certain areas, this gives us flexibilities on hiring qualified people through a local kind of certification means. Obviously, our number one priority is to have people with teacher certification, right? We are not going to just go out and start hiring all these people. But we have had a difficult time, and sometimes even in math and science at the secondary level. So this allows us just some flexibilities in that area. I did want to mention as well, in our last plan, TASB looked over our plan and then helped us make, you know, some guidelines and things and gave some recommendations to us, and we would certainly want them to do that again. The next Texas Education Code that we kind of broadened the language a little bit on, borrowed some language from other districts, is the minimum attendance for class credit code. And in this code, a student has to have 90% seat time or attendance in order to earn credit for a class offered. And there are some, you know, kind of ways around that with attendance committees and that kind of thing. But if COVID has taught us anything, it has taught us that kids, you know, can learn from any place at any time. That could be convenient to them or their family. So we have to think forward. This is good for 5 years. We may not use it today, but it's there should we need it in the future. And so the benefits to the district in getting flexibility with this code is it provides educational advantages to students through innovation in the method and in the location and the times of instruction being delivered to students. It also provides flexibility for students demonstrating mastery of content through an innovative system and a more flexible pace in other classes and situations. So we believe that credit or a final grade for a class should be based on content mastery, and that there are unique situations, not every situation, obviously, where a student lacks you know, the 90% attendance and but is a high achiever, has mastered the course content, and this would allow us to put some systems in place to award those students those credits that they need. I did put a note. It is important to note that we would ensure that teachers have the proper professional learning to carry out this innovative initiative, and it does not, you know, overrule, so to speak, the compulsory attendance or UIL rules, or limit the teacher's ability to assign or determine grades. That would still stand. So you don't, it is in statute, teachers determine the grades, and so this is not about that. This is about kids who are very bright, mastering the content, maybe from a different location or in different ways. So that was just a broadening of that language a little bit. Now, this one is new, and this is teacher employment contracts. Now, under our current law, a probationary contract may not be for a term exceeding 1 school year. The probationary contract may be renewed for 2 additional 1-year periods for a maximum permissible probationary period of 3 school years, except teachers hired by the district who have worked in public education for 5 of the previous 8 years. They are entitled to a term contract only after 1 year of probation. And sometimes we, would like more flexibility with that, because when we hire someone and they only have 1 year of probation, we have to make a decision about their contract. We can't give them another year of probation. And if they need additional professional learning or coaching, or we feel like, they're going to get there, they just need a little more time, this allows us to keep them on that probationary contract and provide them that support that they need in order to be successful. And then it also provides additional time to fully assess and support a teacher before making decisions regarding moving the employee from probationary to term. So when they're ready, we can move them to term. So those are, or that is one of the new ones, and this is the last new one, designation of a campus behavior coordinator. We have campus coordinators at our campuses. This statute, or this Texas Education Code, says that there can only be 1 person per campus. And we believe in distributed leadership and shared responsibility. And, we have some pretty large campuses. And so we would like the flexibility to have more than 1 to develop capacity in more of our people at the campus level, with structures in place to ensure that the responsibilities of a campus behavior coordinator is carried out with fidelity. So those are the codes that have been changed or tweaked. The rest of them are exactly the same. Nothing has changed. From here, we would notify the commissioner that we are planning to renew and that we are going through the process, and we would post this online for public input. Then we would have an open meeting, and then we would come to you all after that open meeting. So, and DEIC would be a part of that and look at that feedback. Okay. Any questions or comments? No?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's going to take us to D3. Review November 2nd, 2021 bond election results and associated timelines. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent and board members. We have Mr. Glenn Wickle, our Director of Communications, and Amy Draws, our Chief Financial Officer. They're going to kind of give us a deeper dive into our most recent bond results, and also compare those relative to propositions throughout the state, just to give us some a baseline of comparison and just greater details as to bond election results. So with more information, Mr. Glenn Winkle and Ms. Strauss.
Thank you, Mr. Martindale. Mr. Nugent, members of the board, pleasure to be here with you this evening to share you a little information regarding the 2021 bond election that was held on November 2nd. I'd like to start with just a little bit of history. Going back to 2007, College Station ISD's held 4 bond elections previous to the 2021 election. I wanted to show you this just to show that our community has a long history of being supportive of this school district when it comes to approving bond elections for our growth in the district. However, since that time, there has been some changes in the law regarding bond elections. One of those is the law surrounding certain items having to be voted upon in their own proposition. We've talked about those items several times in here, and I won't go into details there, but that is one big change. And then the other big change is the law that says you have to have the language, "This is a property tax increase." It must be included on each proposition, even though your tax rate may not be changing. That being said, our community continues to support our school district. 3 of our 4 propositions passed, and while we are very disappointed as an administration that Proposition D did not get approved, we have some pretty good evidence coming up in the next few slides that show that our community is still very, very supportive of our school district. And by the way, those 3 propositions that did pass represent approximately 78 million of the $83 million we put forward to our voters. There were 63 elections held statewide, which contained 111 total propositions. Of those 111 propositions, 51 of them were approved by voters in their respective communities, approximately 46%. And if you look at the dollar amounts that were approved, about 60.4% were approved. And a big chunk of that, we can thank, what was it, Mike, Fort Worth ISD for their $1.5 billion bond that was approved by voters. You to dig down into these results a little bit more. Of the 63 total elections held statewide, 36 were single prop elections. 17 of those were successful. 27 were multi-prop elections that had 75 total propositions. Of those 75, 34 of those were successful. And this is perhaps the most interesting thing on this slide to me, is that there were 21 elections that had 44 propositions that were estimated to not increase the tax rate, and only 15 of those were successful statewide. And 3 of those happened to be ones that we put forward. Speaking directly to our propositions C and D, there were 31 propositions statewide that had to do with athletic facilities, natatoriums, multi-purpose facilities, extracurricular facilities, and recreational facilities. Only 22.6%, or 7 of those, were successful statewide. In 3 instances, Alief ISD, College Station ISD, and Elgin ISD, there were 2 of those propositions put forward with each one of them having 1 pass. Then if you look at Commerce, Hooks, Kilgore, and Lone Oak, their facilities were approved by voters. Those are smaller districts in East and Northeast Texas. And I encourage you also to look at the dollar amounts out there in comparison to the amount of dollars that were approved statewide. Not very many dollars were approved for these types of facilities. A little bit about our election. College Station ISD has 34 official voting precincts, and I'm not talking about voting centers. Voting centers are where you go to vote. Voting precincts are specific plots of property that are outlined on a voting map that contain a jurisdiction of people. So it's a piece of the voting jurisdiction within the district. 21 of those 34 precincts in College Station ISD recorded 10 or more votes. Just as a note, there are several precincts in College Station ISD that have 0 voters. They're small pieces of property, for whatever reason, that are carved out as their own voting precinct and have no voters. And then you can see the breakdown there. 14 precincts had 100. 14 of the 34 had 100 or more. 10 of the 34 had 200 or more, and 6 of the 34 recorded 500 or more votes. Voter turnout for us was relatively good compared to state results, a little bit higher at 10.7%. We had 7,043 ballots cast in the College Station ISD election out of almost 66,000 registered CSISD voters. Now, the numbers, if you go back and look, the for and against on the propositions aren't going to add up to 7,043 because of the undervote. And the undervote is when a person, for whatever reason, does not cast a vote in a certain election that's listed on the ballot. Breaking down our 4 propositions, of those 21 precincts that recorded 10 or more votes, again, there were 21 of those. Proposition A and B, all 21 of our voting precincts had 100% votes of 50% or more voted for. In Proposition A, 17 to 21 or 81% had at least 60% or more votes for Proposition A. And you can see those numbers. Proposition C, again, had 18 of 21 with 50% or more votes and 7 of 21 with 60% or more votes, while Proposition D only had 6 of 21 precincts with 50% or more votes and none with 60% or more votes. Any questions regarding the election or the statistics that I laid out here before I hand this over to Ms. Draws? I don't think you need it. Oh, yeah, you need a microphone.
So the big question is what's next? Got a lot of people very anxious to get started. So currently, this month and next month, we are working on our timeline for purchases and projects so that we can determine what's going to happen when. We're starting discussions on the project proposals and the bids and how we're going to go about those. Having discussions with our financial advisor related to the details of the sale of the bond. And at the December board meeting, we are planning to bring a document to the Board of Trustees asking for your approval of the financing plan and a parameter sale order. That would kind of give us the go-ahead within certain parameters to sell those bonds. In January 2022, you're going to start seeing the requests for purchases, a lot of which will exceed the 50,000. So you're going to see those in here, and we're going to start issuing purchase orders, particularly for those items that have a long lead time. Buses are 6 to 7 months out. Technology devices, fine arts equipment, HVAC equipment, those are things that are going to take a while to get in. And many of these things and projects we're looking to implement and start in the summer of 2022. In February, we are looking to award the bond sale and get those proceeds. And then from there, we'll be bringing you ongoing updates to the board as to our progress and how we're proceeding. Any questions?
What work or renovation work or particular campus we might begin to see stuff moving around as early as next summer?
The campus in particular that we've been working on, and we've told you that's at Southwood Valley. It was one of our higher priority items, and we've had the architect already working on that for a couple of months, getting some things in line. So we are probably expecting to do work over 2 phases, the first phase being summer 2022. So there'll be some visible things there, and then probably come back the next summer with a phase 2 and finish it up.
I don't know if this is more of a comment or a question, but I think as a board, we may need to figure out where we go from here, and administration for that matter, because, clearly, for example, the Consol field house, something's got to be done. It's too small for the current capacity of the school. Updates are needed, so forth and so on. So even though the bond failed, I think the board really ought to start trying to figure out a way to get some of that done. Obviously it's not something we're going to decide at this meeting, but it needs to be, if not expanded, at least updated and so forth and so on. So I guess that's more of a comment than a question.
And Mr. Mann, we have had some conversation within administration about that. As that conversation evolves, and we feel as though there's a strategy that's worthy of sharing with the board, that we'll come forward with that. Of course, it was a bond proposition, so your limiting factor is $5 million. So that is something that we're going to have to create a strategy to attempt to address over the course of time.
All right.
My question was a little bit more on the timeline, maybe on the last slide. I mean, this is the short-term timeline. How long do you think it will take us to utilize most of this?
It's going to be 3
months.
summers because particularly the major renovations on the campuses, it's hard to do those while the kids are in school. And so we're working with our architect on a timeline, which I can bring you some more data in the next several weeks probably. But most of it is going to occur in the summer. So we're looking at 3 summers at least before to get a lot of this work done. I think you'll see it substantial, but A&M Consolidated High School may even go into a 4th summer.
And along those lines, remind me, it says on their February award for the bond sale, but do you sell all of it, or you stagger some of? Or?
We have talked about that with the financial advisor, and right now I'm leaning to selling it all at once. $78 million is a lot to sell, but at the same time, it is small when you're talking about your big investors and your firms. Also looking at the interest rates that are very favorable and being able to lock that in. We do have some IRS regulations to say we have to spend a certain percentage within 3 years, and that's why I'm working on the timeline, but right now it looks like we can well come within that. So I'm leaning at the financial advisor's advice to one sale instead of multiples.
Yeah, we even, Kimberly, after the 15 bond, which was $34 million, I know we split that one into 2 sales. So even then, that was still almost $70 million. And we did do those over 2 sales, January 16 and January 17, I think. But again, those were $70 million.
It took us longer to spend it too, so
Yeah.
maybe made
Yeah.
more sense. Yeah, so, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Any others? All right, well, thank y'all very much. It's going to take us to D4, receive an update on the work of the CSISD Employee Healthcare Committee. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent and board members. As you're all aware, we had an ad hoc committee that met on, I think, 3 different occasions earlier in the semester to explore the possibility of College Station ISD considering leaving TRS active care because of newly passed legislation and exploring the market. Since that committee has met the last time, administration has met with some consultants on this item, so we can continue to press forward. Ultimately, we'll be coming to the board with some type of recommendation. I would anticipate as early as next month regarding healthcare and how we press forward in providing the best deal for our employees. I guess, and that summarizes your presentation, Ms. Perry. I'm sorry.
That is fair.
With more details.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
I was just speaking of someone else doing this all the time earlier today, and now here I am. With more details, our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Molly Perry.
Thank you for that comprehensive update.
Introduction.
Yes. Mr. Martindale. Good evening, Mr. Nugent, members of the board. I'm happy to continue this journey as we explore these options for our employees, because this really is a potentially great opportunity to improve our benefits for all of our CSISD employees. And so as you all recall, or for those of you in the room that perhaps are new to the discussion, we did charter that committee back in August, and the purpose was to really look at what options we would have as a result of that new legislation that allows districts who are part of the TRS active care healthcare system, current employees, to be able to opt out and enter the market and really evaluate what other kinds of things might be beneficial. So we did, as Mr. Martindale indicated, meet 3 times earlier in the fall as a committee. We had a really great group of folks from across the district in a variety of different types of jobs and roles. And so as a group, we really looked at what that historical information meant, because we weren't always in TRS. That was not an option for districts until the early 2000s. And then we really looked at what would those options even potentially be outside of TRS, and what changes changes are coming to TRS because with these updates, TRS is definitely responding with some changes themselves. Then our final meeting was really looking at that feedback as committee members had gathered. That was important not only to give us direction with our next steps, but also to think about what are the priorities of our employees when it comes to their healthcare services and options. Ultimately, that committee did give us direction to move forward. It was not a full green light in terms of go sign the letter and opt out so much as we think this is probably best, but we want you guys to continue this work as administration and really evaluate and make sure that it's the right financial decision for all of us. And so we did form a working group of district administrators that included not only myself, but Mr. Martindale, our business director, Mr. Lassiter, of course, Amy Draws, our CFO, and Dr. Dixon, our director of in HR that really works with benefits. And so as a group, we look to see who can help us with this work. We're obviously not experts in healthcare. We're educators, and we work within the realm of public education. And so we evaluated 3 potential consultants that might be able to walk us through and help us to make very good, sound decisions in this process. And through that process, identified a potential consultant that we felt like we would be very comfortable with, that the services that they were offering were a good match for what it is that we're needing. And while we have not officially engaged with them at this point, they did provide a second analysis of that TRS claims data that we were able to get, indicating that our premiums over the last 3 years have exceeded those claims. And even when we factor in the additional costs associated with going towards a partial or fully self-funded plan, we would likely still be in a much better situation to leave TRS and go out into the market. Through that process and through that consultant that I mentioned, we also learned about some other options. Not only could we potentially go to the market, but TASB actually now has a health plan that would be something we could consider prior to the market. The timing of this whole situation is definitely one of the greatest challenges because we do have to notify TRS of that decision about whether we intend to opt out or not by the end of this calendar year. But we really can't enter the market until spring because it's too far in advance of that September 1 plan start. And so it does create that level of risk. Whereas with the TASB health plan, we would be able to say, here's what we have, here's our claims data, here's our pool, and they would provide us with the possibility of a fully funded option that we could know almost as a safety net going in, that we at least would have this plan, and then moving into the market, if it became better, we would shift in our focus and go in that direction versus the TASB Health. And so through that process, we really started looking at what that timeline would be as we transitioned from TRS to either a partial, fully, or self-funded plan by September 1. So we still have some work to do before the end of the calendar year. We just received very recently some preliminary details of what those fully funded or self-funded options might look like based on our claims history and participant pool. We're going to have a comprehensive review of that information with the consultant in the near future, and then we plan on finalizing a recommendation to the board based upon not only the committee's work, but also this subsequent work that I just described by that December workshop. That would give us the opportunity to really talk through that information prior to taking action at the regular meeting in order to meet that deadline of December 31st. So that's between now and the end of this year. But of course, if we did continue forward and opt out of TRS Active Care, we would have a lot of work to do between then and the beginning of the next plan year to ensure a very smooth transition. So the first step in that would be to enter into an agreement with the consultant to assist with that transition process. We would then test the market in the early spring. That would give us a better idea as we got a little closer to the beginning of the plan year. And then if it looked like it would be more favorable than the TASB health plan, we would engage in an RFP process, and that consultant would assist us with that aspect and ultimately select the best healthcare provider based upon our employee needs, provide, of course, all of the plan information and open enrollment information and support so that we would transition and begin in that new system on September 1 of 2022. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or entertain any comments that you might have.
Trying to understand the word consultant. Is it kind of like an agent would be? Am I thinking about that wrong, or?
So in terms of agent, I wouldn't necessarily use that descriptor, because when you think of an insurance agent, that's the person that you're directly working through. This person is engaged with other school districts around the state, and they're very knowledgeable not only with the TASB health plan, but also the free market. And so they're able to provide that third party working for us to help us in that process.
Yeah, so I guess every once in a while there's an agent that goes out and helps find that doesn't work for a specific insurance company, but they're going out and helping you find the best fit for you, more like that. Yeah, so you're that's the consultant role.
To a point, the consultant role is more of a person that can guide us in the right direction of what other districts are doing, what TASB has done, what's on the individual market, and this and that. After that, that's where the RFP comes in. Then we kind of act as our own agent based off of the feedback from the consultant. If I'm wrong on this, make sure, this is how I've understood it. The RFP goes out to basically solicit who wants College Station ISD's business and what's in the best interest of, and I'm glad y'all put that in there, the employee needs are the numero uno of what we're looking at, because that was some feedback we got was, like every health care plan, can I go to the same doctor? Do I have the same folks? Do I get to go to Baylor Scott & White? Do I get to go to CHI St. Joseph? Those are all considerations that we've got to take into consideration as we move through the process. And that's where that RFP is going to be very crucial from whatever we get back from the consultants.
Thanks.
So the couple of really big pieces to this, or aha moments for me through the course of this work, is when we got our claims data back from TRS, and our contributions far exceeded our claims over the last 3 years. I said far. It was a significant amount of money, which led me to believe, obviously, then our employees or the premiums that we were paying was resulting in a profit. So that was an aha moment for me that maybe the market is a time for us to consider. The other thing that was bothering me, but which I feel much better about at this moment, is you have to tell TRS end of December, right? And so no one is going to provide you a potential plan 9 months out. There's no way. The market's just too volatile. So I was concerned about saying we're leaving, not knowing how the RFP was going to play out and be exposed from that standpoint, if I'm making sense so far. The TASB coverage, which is something we learned about in visiting with our consultant, and it's fairly new, if I recall correctly, Ms. Perry, will give us a guaranteed set rate or plan, and they will guarantee it this far out. So we, in essence, and we just received that data, we're still really kind of looking through the cost of that and everything else. But it is kind of that, as Molly said, that safety net or parachute for us, so that if we decide that we want to exit TRS Active Care and go to the market, if something went wrong as we entered the market, we have that TASB plan in place, and we already know what that entails. So I think realizing that our contributions exceeded our claims, and then knowing that that TASB model or safety net is there for us were the two things that struck and have stayed with me through this process so far.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Thank you.
Thanks for adding to my presentation, Ms. Perry. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, it's going to take us to D5, receive an update on the work of the Academic Achievement and Class Rank Committee. Mr. Martindale.
Watch this, Mr. Nugent. With this agenda item, we have Ms. Tiffany Parkerson, Executive Director of Secondary Ed.
I don't get more than that, thanks. There wasn't even enough time to get the presentation pulled up. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, and the rest of the board. I'm here this evening to give you an update on another ad hoc committee, the Academic Achievement and Class Rank Committee, which is really focused on looking at policy EIC local, the colloquial name for which is the GPA policy. Right. So back whenever you chartered the committee, we set the purpose of examining the board policy and determining whether any changes need to be recommended for your consideration. I'd like to also reiterate once again that if the committee moves forward with recommending any changes, it would be implemented with one designated incoming freshman class, and that no current high school students would be impacted. And I'll repeat that, no current high school students would be impacted. I feel like I still get that question, and we can't say that often enough, that we're not going to change the rules of the game per se midstream for any students. So this was our original timeline, and I'll share through the end of the presentation some changes here. But I wanted to share it once again just to show the extensive work that the committee has done thus far, and the number of meetings that we have had in making sure that the choices that we make are right for our kiddos as we move forward. At this point, I'm excited to say that we have really, if we had check marks, we have made it through to the fourth bullet here. So at this point, we've done a thorough analysis of our existing policy EIC local. We have taken a lot of time to really look at our current offerings in that tier 1, that 5.0 weighted category, to be able then to look at sample transcripts, look at the impact for a student's GPA, and know what that actually means for our students. We also had the opportunity to take a look at 20 different comparison school districts' policies and learn from them and ask questions about them. And along the way, I feel like I should also reiterate that we had an opportunity to meet with an admissions officer from Texas A&M and learn even more about what colleges and universities do with the GPA. So we have a lot of background knowledge leading into us being able to start looking at whether or not we want to make some recommendations for some changes to bring to you all to consider. And throughout this process, we have really anchored our work in the CSISD strategic design process. And so at our last workshop, I had alluded to giving some surveys at the end of the meetings. And so now that I've shown the team, I want to just kind of preview that process with you here momentarily. So here's an example from the course of the first 3 meetings, looking through that lens of our strategic framework for what degree to what degree our committee members thought that our current policy aligned with the ideas therein. And so for expediency with time, I'm not showing you all 5 different facets of the strategic framework because this gives you kind of the trends. So after our very first meeting and really delving into the strategic framework, you can see that the committee was kind of, let's hit it in the middle. We're not real sure. We're learning, we're exploring, but we're not feeling confident that we have alignment. Okay. In the second meeting here, you see much the same and even more so a little shift more to the other end of like, we don't have strong alignment here. This was, I think, the meeting where we were most in those metaphorical weeds, like figuring it out and learning about other people's policies and calculating GPAs by hand and all of that. And so I think the context is important too. And then this survey came at the end of our meeting, during which we heard from our college admissions officer, and we also really looked at those 20 comparison districts and realize, oh goodness, like there are a lot of ways we can do this and many opportunities out there. But once again, there is not a strong feeling yet that we really are confident that our current policy is in strong alignment with our strategic design framework. Okay. And ultimately, by the end of this, if we do put any revisions forth, the challenge to the committee is that at the end, and when we reflect, that we will have that strong alignment. We will feel like the policy that we have really is anchored in the vision that we have for our students and in those learner outcomes, the portraits that we have, and will help us to really actualize those goals. So, at our last meeting, we really started delving into a process to build consensus or work toward consensus. We are fortunate that through the strategic design process as well as the bond committee, we have recently used a few protocols. And so our process really is borrowing the best of those processes. So as we work toward consensus, we've had some conversation around consensus is not a democratic vote necessarily. It's a, can we agree with these ideas? Do we feel comfortable with this? Are we confident that this is what is best for our kids? And really engaging in a lot of dialogue around that. So it's a slow process as well. We start with that individual reflection piece, and we did have an opportunity for our committee members to send in individual feedback and reflections, and so they have printed copies in their artifact pouches. That's what I call our big envelope of all of the things for them to refer back to, and I'd share that with y'all in transmittal as well, so you have the opportunity to look through that individual reflection and feedback. So with each of our decision points, once again, individual processing, then we go to a larger table team for them to reach consensus as a table team, and then cross team with another group to come to consensus at that layer as well. We are also really trying to stay focused on broad concepts, not word smithing. We have a TASB, we have legal counsel. We just need the ideas on the paper. We can get help with polishing it, making sure that it says what we want it to say. And so let's try to help us not to get lost in the weeds too much with that. We also are aware, that we do have some constraints. We do need to have students designated in the top 10%, for example, for college admissions purposes. This is not the time to abandon having a policy ISD local altogether or anything like that. We know we have those constraints within which we must work. And we also need to be cognizant that any recommendations that we need to make, we need to make sure our computer systems can do them too. And so we're going to dream big for our kids, and then we're going to look at the constraints within our systems too. So all of that to say, at our last meeting, we really want to stay rooted in that strategic design framework. So we practiced our consensus building by going back into the strategic design brochures and pulling out, gleaning from that, several guiding principles. So once again, everyone did that individually, then with a table, and then cross-teamed. And I will admit that just to the sake of time, we didn't finish with the room. I did that for them. So I'll show you that here in a moment, just pulling their cross-team information on what they pulled out is important and to make sure that we keep in mind. So these are the overarching ideas. Once again, we're working on concepts. So I kept the verbiage from the team here. It's not perfect. So we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities for all learners to explore and grow regardless of their grade. In their classes, the GPA. We want to make sure that we address those distinct learning needs, their interests, aspirations, cultural backgrounds, and once again, going back to that all learners, it's very affirming to see through the consensus documents that embracing of the unique success. We want those personalized learning experiences. We want to elevate academic outcomes for all kids. We want to promote risk-taking. So how do we do that within one policy that really sets the stage for all of our other administrative decisions that we make from there? So as we are digging into looking at the policy itself, we're not working from beginning to end. We are delving into the middle of the actual document, into the weighted grading system, because the determinations that we make here in this section, or the recommendations we make here, then have a waterfall effect or domino effect, choose your metaphor, into the rest of the policy. And so we really spent the bulk of our conversation in our last meeting getting into the weighted grading system and what does that mean and what do we recommend. And so just to refresh you all, this is the current policy, EIC local, and the wording there. This is the piece that, for our decision one, we really focused on this aspect of it, which has the categories, the tier 1 and tier 2 courses, which currently include eligible advanced placement and our locally designated advanced courses is weighted as tier 1, and then everything else pretty much there is tier 2. So we had some really great conversations across the room. We have a passionate group of knowledgeable people. And it was both, it was pretty affirming as well to see how seriously everyone is taking this work. So at this point, the consensus of the room in that regard is from all 3 of our cross-team groups that they believe we should move toward a 3-tiered system. Okay, with advanced placement being in tier 1, advanced being in tier 2, and then all other courses in tier 3. There was robust discussion about dual credit in the room and whether it fits with tier 1 because of the college credit in tier 1 or with advanced in tier 2 from there. And so the next meeting that we have, that is the point at which we will begin really talking about dual credit. We had a lot of great questions come out of the conversations. I will provide some clarity around academic dual credit versus technical dual credit. Everything is connected within this policy. There is a whole different section that designates that we would only include or that currently we only include a dual credit class that is actually physically taken on our campuses. And so I'll need to provide a little bit of context around that for the group as well. And ultimately, I think that it's also important to note that when this committee makes these recommendations, we are pairing that with a rationale that we'll share. Why do we think this is important, and why do we think this is the change that needs to happen? I think this is an area potentially where we're getting lost in the weeds in the current course offerings and not looking toward the future. And so I will guide the committee toward looking at that lens as well. But that's where we are at this point as far as potential recommendations. The next piece then, once we come to consensus here, would then to be to look at the actual weighted grade. Is it 5.0, 4.0? Is it 6, 5, and 4? What does that look like? And then from there, we would go into the rest of the policies. So all that to say, just knowing where we are, I don't know if you've noticed the subtle change that I have made here. We had previously planned to potentially be able to bring some revised policy recommendations to you for consideration in December. We are looking more toward January, February. We want to make sure that we are taking all the time needed to make good long-term decisions for our students. And so at the end of the last meeting, I'd already asked them to save the date for an additional December date. We'll pause for the holiday season and regroup in January and continue forward. To be frank, at the earliest, as you're looking at the complexity of the policy and the implications that it has in other areas, such as our course catalog and course offerings, even our student handbook, it will take us quite some time to be able to make our other administrative guidelines match with this policy nonetheless. So I would think that probably the earliest we would be able to implement this with a cohort of students would be our 7th grade. So we have some time to work through the spring and make sure we all feel comfortable and confident in this process. So our work is to be continued. It's been a really great experience, and we have a wonderful group of people in the room working through this. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
No questions, just a couple comments. I like that you guys are taking time with this. I mean, I have zero problems with prolonging this. I mean, this discussion was a long time coming, I think. And I would much rather you look at every angle before, you present anything to us. So I'm fine with that, and I think fantastic. Also, I think I said it last month, but I'm gonna say it again. I think you guys have really lofty goals, and I love that you are, hang on, I wrote it down, so that you are fostering unique individual success, even though we're giving grades in GPA. I love that you're still focused on that, making sure that we are still fostering this every child succeeds, and finding what they're good at, even with awarding a grade. So thank you for still remembering that, because I wanted to be on this committee, but I knew this one would be really hard for me, because I am that person that would probably say, let's just throw it all out, What happens if we don't have grades? I know, you cringed, because I know we can't do that. Those are the constraints.
I didn't cringe, I smiled. I may or may not have proposed that.
Okay. I know those are constraints.
So moving along in the conversation.
But I appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you.
And I'll comment too from being in the room. I mean, I thought the exercise of kind of starting the meeting last time with those guiding principles was very meaningful, getting us all focused back on this. A great way to start it out. But we really are doing some hard work in that group. So this is the first I really heard that it would maybe pushed out into next year. The whole committee hadn't heard that yet. But I think I would agree that there are lots of complexities here, and as you just described, not only are there complexities the committee still has to do, but there will be lots of things that follow on for the administration. So we do want to get it right. So I guess I recognize, it'll take a little longer, so that makes sense. I do have one question, because I've heard this twice when you say a constraint about a computer system. Do you really, is that really practically a possible
So I don't know
constraint?
that, let me say, in my research with other districts, I think that any computer program can do potentially what we want it to do, but I want to be transparent that it may come at a cost depending on what those things are. So in my conversations with Leander, who just went through a very similar process, uses a very similar, not very similar, uses the exact same SIS as we do. There were some cost implications and some things within there to be able to get the system to do.
Okay.
To do those things.
That's fair. Okay. Might cost something. And all right. Thank you. Thank you for leading this big, giant group and doing it so well. Thank you.
And Kimberly, I think we kind of came to the realization of fall 23 today, just kind of discussing. And so we've been operating under the current policy forever, right? So rather take our time and get it right, instead of rush and try to have something in front of the group early spring to try to implement next fall. This is one where we want to, troubleshoot and brainstorm and anticipate problems to solve beforehand, right? And there are lots of implications, like Tiffany mentioned. This thing just kind of grows tentacles as you start thinking beyond the policy itself. So we just, we were talking through it today, and I will own it, because I said it to her. I'm like, it is better we just go slow, because to ensure that this is done correctly, because this is a huge lift and not one that we want to fumble.
No, I agree completely. And again, just looking at what we barely almost got to one decision almost at the last meeting. I didn't see how we'd get through the next decisions. But also, I do think some time for reflecting on what those decisions will really roll out and look like. In fact, I'd even think it might be beneficial for the committee to see some actual more, play out some of those scenarios. Yeah, exactly. Because, we're coming up, we're having so many great discussions, but, what does it really look like at the end of the day? So
yes, ma'am.
That's good.
Any more? Ms. Parkerson, thank you. Are you going to be staying up here?
I will stay.
I thought you might. Someone will probably join you. That's going to take us to D6. Receive an update on possible programming for College View High School in 2022-2023. Mr. Martindale.
All right, with this agenda item, we have Dr. Mike Heath, our principal at College View High School, and Ms. Parkerson will continue. Mr. Ross will be joining them. They'll be rotating. This is a three-person presentation, so just hold on to your seats. So they'll rotate in and out for different parts of the presentation as we kind of just share the vision for College View and the work and the plans and preparing for the 22-23 school year. Very excited about this presentation.
All right. Good evening once again. I'm excited to have Dr. Mike Heath join me, the principal of College View High School, and Mr. Kevin Ross, our CTE director, will join in with us here as well as we talk about future programming for College View High School. So College View, as we have looked to build an identity for the school and reevaluate our programming, we've really settled in on the fact that College View is really our home for those innovative and specialized programs to serve students through a non-traditional educational setting. And we have really honed in on that word innovative. Innovative means different. It's supposed to be different. It's not supposed to be a mini comprehensive high school. It's supposed to give kids a unique opportunity. And so the things that we're going to share with you this evening are really designed through that lens. How can it be different? How do we make sure that we are serving all of our kids and meeting them where they need to prepare them for life after high school? So last May, I believe it was, we talked a little bit about planning forward through an academy model within College View. And so we are going to give you some more information about those three academies, which are just once again, the Accelerated Academy, the Career and Industry Academy, and then the Collegiate Academy. And we have really tried to take a look at the things that are currently offered there, choose the flowers that we want to water, and be strategic in the things that we no longer want to have in our garden. So
she didn't say that weeds were.
I couldn't have said it any better. I don't know.
With that being said, I'm going to let
so
Miss
nice.
Dr. Heath follow
So
that.
pleasant.
It was. I'm writing that one down.
Mr. Martindale,
Dr.
Mr.
Heath,
Nugent,
could you
the
get a
board.
little bit more enforceable there?
I think she hit the nail right on the head. So we're, but anyway, once again, just, looking at College View coming in last May, really taking the school forward to find a vision and looking at that innovation. When we look at some of the programs that we've done research on, innovation is the big word. Our school vision is what it is here, but really putting in that innovative vision now that we are going to prepare, we're going to inspire, prepare, and empower students, all students, for lifelong success. It's ironic with some of the programs that we've looked at, because this was a definition that we really kind of work together and go, who are we looking at? Who are we wanting to serve? And historically underserved students who desire a college and or career focused in a customized high school experience in an innovative setting. And so with that being said, we always want to go back now to the strategic framework, our framework for success, and looking at College Station ISD's vision statement to drive our decisions, and looking at together we are going to prepare our learners for their own unique successes. I know that you hit on this with fostering each individual student despite the grade, and I think that what we're going to demonstrate here tonight is that we're looking at every student, what they bring to the table, and how we can best support them moving forward to meet College Station's vision and our vision at College View High School. Once again, we always want to go back to our goals. And as we move forward in College View High School, we are wanting to enhance effective instructional practices, but be personalized. Every student that walks in the door, we want them to have a unique experience. For some reason, they need a different setting, that innovative setting. And so by them taking on the challenge to come to College View, we need to honor that commitment and support them. We obviously want to elevate the historical academic outcomes of groups that have not performed well. We also want to enrich the relationship with students that may feel like a comprehensive high school setting is not the best fit for them. And then finally, we want to cultivate relationships not only in the school district, but also with our local community. We need to be preparing students to go out and better serve College Station and give them the tools to do that successfully. So As Ms. Parkinson said, we talked about the Accelerated Academy. The original goal of the Accelerated Academy is to accelerate learning. What we found this year is we have two types of students. We have the student that wants to get out. For whatever reason it is, they need to get out of high school. We have a pathway for them to do that. Another thing that we've realized is we have students that are behind, whether it's been COVID, family moves, all kinds of circumstances. How do we support that student? I give a great example. We had one that just finished 2 days ago. She was behind, didn't know she was going to even graduate high school, and is now filling out college applications. So there's definitely a place for the Accelerated Academy at College View High School, and we want to make sure that we're pushing those students to earn that 26 credit endorsement and customize them with not only Edgenuity classes, but face-to-face, because putting a kid in front of the computer all day is not ideal. So we want to kind of mix it up for them, but best support them. Also, the Collegiate Academy, as you know, we offer 42 hours, what we call the Core 42. At this time, we're able to financially pay for our students to get this Core 42. It is in partnership with Blinn. When talking with Blinn, it's a great opportunity to, if a student were to graduate from College Station ISD and go to Blinn and take these 42 hours on their own, it would cost them in excess of $25,000. If they come to College View, we're saving them that amount of money. The good thing about the College 42, it is transferable to any public university in the state of Texas. So we're guaranteeing those kids that go through this program to at least enroll in a public university in Texas as a second semester sophomore. Oh, absolutely.
This is one of the existing programs. Previously, there were 69 hours of college credit courses available, kind of in a
It's like a hodgepodge.
in a ad hoc manner, right? And so really, we've worked to crosswalk those with our high school course offerings, really focus it in, and have the foundational courses available for students who choose this pathway.
And now I'm going to turn over the mic to Mr. Ross.
Good evening. So let's talk about CTE. Under these academies, different models, this will be Career and Industry Academy. There's going to be 4 that'll be highlighted. As we went through this process, again, innovation, something that's different. We don't want to compete with our comprehensive high schools. We don't want to duplicate CTE at another place and we keep spreading ourselves more thin. What we're looking for are specific things that our city needs, the state of Texas needs, workforce needs, college needs, kind of all wrapped into one. So fire science, digital arts and media influencer. We have facilities engineering technology, and for the first time, we're going to have hotel resort management. And I'll go through each one of these, give you kind of a brief overview of what they are as we go through them. We established years ago a Fire Science Academy with TEKS. We still have that. We don't currently have anybody in place right now, but it is still on the books. We're going to continue to promote this. We know that there is always a need for firemen in this state, and we'll continue to offer it and move forward with it. The next one is digital arts and media influencer. So innovation. Whether we like social media or not, this is the world we live in. And what's happening across the nation is every company needs marketing and advertising in a different manner now. They don't need specific AV, specific graphic design, specific animation. What they need is they need a kid that knows a little bit about animation, a little bit about photo, a little graphic design, a little video, and when you put it all together, they have a skill set that they literally can work anywhere in the world. One of our data points I want to show is this right here. This blew my mind. And when we started talking to people around, everybody kept telling me, Kevin, you need to get into this influencer. So I went to Indeed.com for some data, and 17,000 jobs are open right now in the nation. Well, okay, a lot of kids like to live in this area. Look what is popping up all over, the word remote. What's happening is people are living here, taking jobs all over the nation, making huge money because they have a skill set in this influencer world. So I just want to make sure I'm very straightforward. We're not spending taxpayer dollars to try to make people Instagram models here. But what's interesting about this is the social media, the skills that they learn by doing all of this gives them a specific skill set that is now changing as we speak. So I'm very excited about this. This is something that we don't do at the other high schools. What we do at the other high schools are 4 years of specific skills. This one is a little bit of each, kind of all wrapped into one, okay?
What's the current program that we're evolving?
The current program is animation. We've had animation there for a few years. We've just never had a real high animation class. It's very difficult to get kids in animation. As you know, the state wants us to do the completers. And everything that we're also designing here will get us completer status in 3 to 4 years of those coherent sequences in those courses. Animation, again, we never had enough numbers to basically have a full-time animation program. So we thought this was the perfect time to revamp that into something of this nature. Very excited for this next one. This is the first time we're going to get into the hospitality world. We have offered culinary for years, and culinary is booming. It's a great skill set. As a guy with a hospitality administration background, I will tell you this is a job that is dying that employers in this area are dying to hire. When we joined the SEC years ago, y'all saw overnight what happened with the hotels, the conference centers. So I'm very excited to let you know that we're about to endeavor into the hotel resort management world. As you can see, we've got a couple of partners that we're in conversations with. The Texas A&M Hotel and Conference Center. We have big shots. They told me I could say this out loud today. We don't have MOUs in place yet. We'll bring those in the spring to you. But I wanted you to see the level that we're headed down. At College View, the goal is, it's hard to teach hospitality inside 4 walls with center blocks. You have to get kids out on these properties. What's really exciting about this, these properties want our kids. We will bus them literally 2 days, 3 days a week to these properties. They'll work on these properties. They will get firsthand knowledge with that and then come back. I also like to highlight the Texas Lodging Association, the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation, and Safarion. When I called them and told them what we were thinking about doing, they said, absolutely, we are dying for employees in this. And what's interesting about this one, again, it doesn't compete with the hospitality or the culinary kids. This is something different. Because we're on a different block schedule at College View, this is very appetizing to these properties because we can get kids there 2 or 3 days a week in a 2 to 3 hour section. We can't do that at a comprehensive high school on a 7-period day. So that's something else.
All right, and so as we move into the fourth piece of the Career and Industry Academy, this will be our program of study that is designated for the P-TECH model. And so the P-TECH designation is something that we really started examining last spring as we were reimagining what College View would be. And through the T-Class grant process, we were able to apply for this designation for College View. So in short, this is a Pathways in Technology Early College High School. Notice, and this is straight from their description, it's an innovative open enrollment high school. Open enrollment here means that, that you don't have to have a certain grade to get into the program, that we're not limiting based on a test score or something like that. So I wanted to clarify, it's not opening it to outside of the district or whatnot. And that we are identifying those students who may not be likely to attend college or to have a credential or an associate's degree if we don't begin that pathway and give them these hands-on industry-based experiences as part of their high school experience as well. Once again, like the hotel and resort management description that Mr. Ross just gave, it's very career-focused, very work-based education programs. And we're very excited about our work in this. this, just to be fully transparent, we are in the works of going through this process with TA and working through this designation. So we are able to begin offering courses for the P-TECH program of study in a school within a school model. That's what we have chosen within College View here in as early as next school year. So we can begin this. We would not have the official designation until the 23-24 school year. So, and with that, I'll let Kevin tell you the good stuff.
All right, so we talked about 3 of our CTE programs, and this is now the 4th one. And I'm excited to say that you're going to have College Station kids on Relish campus next year. I'd like to give a huge shout out behind me. They don't want me to tell them, but this is Carla Flanagan over here. She is the Dean of the technical side of Blinn, and beside her is Shannon Williford. She's in charge of all dual credit. We've been working on this for years in this town, trying to get kids over there, and I am so excited that it's about to happen for College Station kids. The building that you see is the Texas A&M building that is shared with Blinn for their workforce education. They want our kids there. Our kids will be there. We're working on our first cohort, and it's going to be really exciting to see those school buses drop kids off and let them be a part of a college campus. Under the P-TECH model, as Ms. Parkerson was saying, it is tied, basically you're chasing an associate's degree. And the associate's degree at the top is what we're chasing, a facilities engineering technology. To a lot of people, that is facilities maintenance. We wanted to use a different term to try to attract more kids and to help parents understand really what they're getting into. We've been working on this with Blinn because, again, we can come up with all these programs, but if we don't have kids volunteer and sign up, it's not going to work out. So we're calling it facilities engineering technology. And what that is, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of electrical, it's a little bit of HVAC, it's a little bit of plumbing, it's a little bit of pipe fitting. Nobody will argue across the state that our trades, they need this. What's really exciting about it is Ms. Parkerson wrote a grant and got it. And this grant, I won't take any credit for it, this grant will help pay for these kids' tuition as we set up this MOU with Blinn to give them their college credit. You're going to hear stuff about level 1 certifications later on, level 2 certifications, all sorts of stuff. But what's really exciting about this is we've crosswalked where it's about 42 to 60 hours that these kids can do under this facilities engineering technology. So when they graduate, they are set and they're making good money and they're moving on with their career. So we're very excited about this. One of the data sets, again, behind facilities engineering is up here. We want to make sure, when I gave my presentation a couple months ago to you, I made sure to say every time we look at why do we do programs, we need to look at Texas workforce data. This is a program, again, I don't think we have to beat into the ground. The trades are needed. And again, this is what it all encumbers. This is totally separate from our construction programs that we do at College Station High School. I want to be very clear about that. I don't think we're competing with that. These are 2 totally different type of kids and 2 totally different avenues.
All right, so as we are planning and moving forward, we have set some goals and some checkpoints, if you will, for measuring our success along the road. So first of all, we want to make sure we're increasing our enrollment in all of the programs at College View. We want to, within that accelerated academy in particular, look at different flexible scheduling options to be able to engage more kids into that accelerated pathway. You may recall from last May when we talked about adding that academy, we really talked about 2 different sets of students. We have our early grads who were maybe not at risk academically, but ready to move onward for whatever reason. We also have our students who are credit deficient. And so the Accelerated Academy is the program that we went ahead and added at this point this year. So we already have some students who are working toward this. We also have been working hard to create an associate's pathway based on Core 42 with Blinn for that collegiate academy piece to really streamline that and make sure we're focused in our efforts there. With our fourth goal, it's really to expand our programs within that Career and Industry Academy, but particularly to implement the PTech model. And so while the Facilities Engineering Technology program will get the specific PTech designation, the underlying philosophy of a PTech school is the underlying philosophy of College View High School as we move forward. Just some historical enrollment that I wanted to share because I think it gives you a big picture. I went back to the archives. There's a lot of conversation around Timber Academy and what Timber Academy used to be and why did we make these changes and so forth. And so I wanted to bring this up today to be able to address that a little bit. Timber Academy was a dropout prevention center on the alternative accountability system. If you were to parallel with what we've been talking about with College View as we move forward, it would mostly be more of an accelerated academy type model there. It's also important to note as we look at the Timber Academy enrollment, because students were able to ebb and flow in and out of the program and graduate early, this year we actually served probably about 70 students, but this is the snapshot. So on that date in October, we had 35 in the building. So I wanted you to be aware of that as well. During the 16-17, 17-18 school years is when we had two campuses running parallel in the same building, when we still kept the Timber Academy, phasing it out and growing College View. So in 16-17, we had about 40 students enrolled in Timber, 26 were the beginning of College View. And then you see those percentages flip-flop here in 17-18, where we have about 35 students who are in the Timber Academy model, and about 65 moving into the foundation of College View as it grew. You'll notice that 18-19 is the first year of the College View individual campus designation. There is no more Timber Academy campus designation number there. And then the number of students that we're serving is still comparable to the number of students who we served through Timber Academy, if not more so. And so I feel like at times there has been an idea that we are not meeting the same level of need. It's a different type of need. And so I think the story that these numbers tell underlines why we are choosing the academy models and what we have chosen to do here to increase the enrollment long term to serve a variety of student needs. In 1920 and 2021, we had the pandemic and the impacts of the pandemic on recruiting and really streamlining those things. This last summer, Dr. Heath at the lowest point had an enrollment of about 45 kids. And he has hustled it back up to about 84 because of those needs within that accelerated academy in particular. So as we move forward, we have some lofty goals to grow our programs here. On our October snapshot date, we had 82 kiddos. Our goal, we're gunning for after 40, at least 40 incoming freshmen, not to mention our students who are currently in our comprehensive high schools who can join in our other academy programs. We will have pathways where maybe they won't get the full number of hours. Maybe they'll get the level 1 certificate, not a level 1 and 2 within the facilities engineering program, for example, but we can get them ready to have a high-skilled, high-wage job after high school through those programs. That 23-24 school year, we're hoping to get to about 180 students, and that's when we'll have that full PTech designation for that one particular program of study, but once again, that's the underlying philosophy. And then we'd like to be beyond 200 by then. For me, I'd like us to see us pushing capacity by then as well. We have just as far as looking at the percentages, as far as our goals, we liked about 45% to be in the collegiate academy, about 45% to be in that career and industry academy, and then about 10% in the accelerated academy out of those numbers as we're parsing through our programs. So just looking at that visually again, we're working toward that exponential growth of College View and the programs there, and acknowledging that within this umbrella, we will serve the same students that our Timber Academy model once did, but we have a facility and infrastructure capable of doing so much more, and that is our plan to maximize that. So as far as our recruiting efforts, Dr. Heath is about to go on the road show. He has been working with Attican as well as our marketing partners through Glenn and Rellis and so forth to create another hype video, which will hopefully be on par with Mr. Ross's CTE video for the district. We know that we have kids based on current enrollment in classes who are our target audience to give personal invitations to look at these programs and get in the building and make sure that they know what we have to offer. And so currently out of this 8th grade class, for example, we just pulled current enrollment of what they are in 8th grade. We have 333 students, so that's about a third. We have about 1,000 students at grade level of our students who are not currently in athletics or in a fine arts program that is only at a comprehensive high school. So they're primed to get plugged in and connected into a different way of doing high school potentially. We currently have between our middle and high schools about 469, precisely, not about, in principals of law who could potentially be interested in this Fire Science Academy. Looking at our digital arts and media, we have the students in principles of arts and photography that are already in our high school programs that Dr. Heath will go visit those classes and show them what we have available to them. With hotel and resort management, we have 231 intro to culinary students at both comprehensive high schools. That's a large pool of kids who might want a different pathway in the hospitality industry beyond the culinary side. And then in addition to that, we have 106 students at both comprehensive schools and intro to construction, plus the Ag Met kids, who we have 82 students in those advanced classes there. We also have a contingency of students who are not mentioned here, who are going over to our CTE partnership campus in Bryan ISD and taking classes who would be potentially interested in the facilities engineering technology programs. So when you look across the board, we think we have not only the workforce data to recommend moving forward with these programs, but also just based on our students' current interest in what they are taking right now, a large pool of students to bring into the College View programs. The advantage here as we plan forward through this academy model is that we will take a hard look annually at each of the academies and which ones are growing. And we have the ability to strategic abandon things that are not working, that are, give them an opportunity, water them, let them grow, but know that we can choose our future as our students are choosing their future through our programs at College View High School as well. So with that being said, we'd love to answer any questions that you have. If y'all would like to tag in.
I'm fired up. I've been waiting for this. So I appreciate y'all being the brainchild on this. I'm excited to see where it's headed, taking what was there, molding it into what y'all's vision is. Thank you to the reps here for teaming up with our district and making this possible. I'm very excited about that opportunity. It just opens the door to what CSISD can be. So like I said, I was pretty fired up to hear this when I saw it on the agenda here, because I've been waiting about 1.5 years for it. So looking forward to the future on that.
I just want to say, wow, it's phenomenal. And I'm so glad to be a part of this meeting, to be able, as my last meeting, to be able to hear what great things and how well thought out this is. I think that the workforce data that you have coupled with the offerings is huge and crucial to the marketing and success of this program and what you're doing with College View, and just huge hats off and kudos. I know my ideas and running of the road shows and everything that you can do with all of this, but this is really, really huge, and again, a game changer. I did appreciate, and I think a big part of the story is kind of the history of College View. I think some people think that they know what that is, but when you see it the way that it was displayed tonight, it's really it's an evolution and a game changer, and it's kind of now we're at the pinnacle of what it can be and what we're really putting forth to the community. So I just want to thank you for all of the work and research and partnerships. This is big, really, really big, huge. Thank you.
Agree with both those things. Very exciting, but also love that we're not just throwing some things out there, right? There is a lot of reasoning behind these specific programs. And I hope some of the students that we're promoting it to can recognize the opportunities that it could really open up for them. So, because there are a lot of opportunities there for the students. One question, and you touched on it a little bit, I was trying to understand, some of these programs look like you mentioned may need to take like the whole 4 years. How many, how much flexibility do we have for kids coming in as a sophomore or a junior and still really benefiting from, particularly the career and technology pieces of it?
So if you look at the facilities engineering technology, for instance, there's an award, there's a level 1 certification, which is construction electrical. There's also a level 2, which is construction, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. And then there's also an associate's degree. And so working with Carla and Shannon, who have been amazing, they've got full workloads, but they stop and they get us the answers when we ask, is what is the latest I can take a student in and have them get something when they graduate? And there's many options. If you look at hotel and resort management, there's a service award, there's a level 1 certification. So there's a lot of potential in those. And then if you look at the digital arts and media influencer, you're looking at taking, PAV, Animation 1, photography, and then going into a practicum where you can kind of pick your path. And so kids are going to have a lot of options, even if they come in late, to walk away with something tangible. Ideally, we'd like to get somebody all 4 years, but I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school, right? So, the main thing is we want to have options for kids, not take away from the comprehensive high schools. The athletics and fine arts are awesome, but there are kids that are just not plugged in. We want to give them an avenue to get plugged in and do something tangible so that they can be successful also.
And I appreciate hearing that because, at least gives them another year or a tryout of maybe a comprehensive high school and still an opportunity, though, to switch to something that may be a better fit for them at College View.
Congratulations, you guys. I am so pumped for you. Ideas are cheap and many, but this is, y'all had all these ideas and we were like, okay, where's this going to go? We see where it's going to go now. And I think it's incredible. And everything that everyone has said, these opportunities that you're going to provide for students in our district. I see some potential, summer internships with Disney, which would be super exciting. But I'm super pumped for you guys and for our students and our community, because our community is going to benefit from this big time. So thank you for all your hard work and good luck.
All right, I just want to echo what everyone has already said. It is incredibly exciting, and Ms. Green, that is not a bad way to end our last workshop, is it? Wow. It's incredibly exciting. I do want to mention this, though, Mr. Ross. If I understand that you don't want to launch Instagram models, but if you change your mind, I'm quite certain that Mr. Horak and I will be available. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
No, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Martindale.
Thanks for bringing us all down.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.